everybody. It's Professor Malat. Welcome to the Week 10 overview. I just have to say right off the bat, we're at Week 10 now. It is going to go super fast from here on out. We have 5 weeks left of the regular semester plus the additional week for finals week. We don't have a final in this class, so I use finals week as kind of an overall catch-up week for students who might be a little bit behind and still need to submit some assignments. But there is a final paper due during that week, which is just the final metacognitive reflection. I'll talk more about that as we get closer to the due date for it. But here we are starting a new writing unit. This week we begin our research unit. In the past, I have had students choose their own topics, but for this level of the course, I think sometimes it's really a difficult task for students to figure out what it is that they want to research and write about. So I'm actually assigning the topic for you. And every good research project starts with a research question. So I'm going to have you answer this question: does technology make us happy? The research argument essay requires you to do a little bit of research. You won't be on your own as far as that research is concerned. I have 4 articles that I will be assigning over the next couple of weeks that I want you to read, to evaluate, to figure out what these people are saying and how you can work those articles in to help you answer the question, does technology make us happy? So essentially, you are going to be constructing an argument centered on that question. Does technology make us happy? You'll adopt a position, yes or no, and then you're going to prove, well, not prove, but support your position with some evidence. And I have provided a supplementary research packet for you, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So you don't have to go out and find other pieces of information. These are articles and TED Talks and videos that I think will really be helpful to you in constructing your argument and providing support for the way that you feel. So the research essay is a bit longer. It's 4 to 6 pages, and it requires a little bit of synthesis of multiple text. You'll be using at least 4 sources from that pre-selected list of materials that I talked about. In the upcoming weeks, we're going to be learning how to summarize arguments, summarize and evaluate sources, create a works cited list, and use MLA in text citations. So that's a lot of stuff to learn in 5 short weeks. I don't expect you to get it perfectly, but at least we will have covered some of those things. So when you come up against them in your research for English 1001, you're not going to find it as so overwhelming as you might have if you hadn't done any kind of preliminary research work in this course. These are all steps that you need to take when you're approaching a research project. I've just broken them down into some smaller steps so you understand the various tasks that we need to take to successfully complete a research project. So this week, the objectives are to understand research as inquiry based, right? We have questions that we ask, and then we answer them through our research. You also want to determine a strategy for researching the answer to your question. You'll be summarizing an argument and discuss the barriers when approaching a long writing project. So let's take a look at the readings for this week. We are back into grammar territory once more. We have a few more grammar quizzes to take care of over the next few weeks. So this week is subject-verb agreement. This is a very important part of grammar that is easy for us as native English speakers, but those who are English language learners for whom English might not be their first language, that seems to be the biggest problem, the biggest hurdle they have to get over in order to sound fluent and write fluently in English. So subject verb agreement is something that's very important to read. Hopefully it won't be too hard to master, and that will be related to grammar quiz number 6 on subject verb agreement. There are 2 readings that I want you to read in the writer's the writer's practice. I was going to say the writer's project, and I knew that wasn't correct. The writer's practice. I want you to read the overview on research and argument, as well as the pages. What do they mean? So that's on pages 120 to 127 in the PDF. And then I have these 2 articles that you will be reading this week. How Facebook Makes Us Unhappy by Maria Konnikova, and Pursuing Happiness in a Digital World. These 2 readings you must read in order to complete the discussion board. And we'll look at that in a minute, as well as you will be choosing one of those 2 articles to summarize in the Summarizing an Argument worksheet. I also have here a Canvas page that's called What is Argument? It starts off with a humorous sketch from Monty Python. Those of you who are older students might know Monty Python. If you're younger, you might not know Monty Python quite so well. There is a transcript that goes along with it if you want to read along with it, or you can turn on the closed caption as well. This is only about 6 minutes long, and it's quite humorous. But the point is that that video attempts to define what argument is. And so I have a few of the lines that the actors have said here, but then I also have some of what the academic sources say argument is, as well as 2 linked resources that I recommend that you read. It's not required reading, but it will be helpful to kind of wrap your mind around what an academic argument is. Then for how to summarize an argument, there are some things that you should be looking for as a critical reader when you're analyzing a writer's main argument. First of all is to figure out what the main idea or their thesis is. You also want to look for reasons and evidence. Make sure you know the difference between fact and opinion, biased and unbiased information, any kind of counterclaims, counter argument, or what I like to call the yeah, but. Can you think of a yeah, but what about this, right? That might be something that the author has not entertained in their writing, in their argument. So this will come in handy as you start to analyze the argument of one of those required readings from this week. Back to the module and back to the readings. We also have 2 supplementary handouts. So you see essay 3 research argument assignment sheet. I don't want you to panic. That's not due until week 15, right? But I think it's good to get started and to understand the essay that you will have to write, what some of those requirements are. So I'm going to open this sheet and read through some of, or explain some of what we're trying to do here. So here is the essay number 3 research argument rough draft assignment sheet. So as you might know, if you've already had a paper assigned in another class, that many college writing assignments are forms of argumentative writing. In the classical argumentative writing assignment, writers describe an important issue, state a position, support the position, present arguments against the position taken, and end by urging readers to change their thinking or take some action on the issue. Since you are new to doing research and writing an essay in which you take a stance and express your opinion, using that research to support your side, I am going to propose that you think about the following question for this essay. Does technology make us happy? So in other words, I am dictating the topic for you. Your research argument essay will answer that question. You'll take a stance. You'll answer yes or no, and then you will use evidence to help support your position. So the answer to the question above becomes the controlling idea for your essay. And in other words, it becomes your thesis statement or your claim. I want you to choose one of the following articles that I've assigned in weeks 8 and weeks 9. In week 8, we have How Facebook Makes Us Unhappy and Pursuing Happiness in a Digital World. In week 9, you'll be reading Stop Googling, Let's Talk, and 4 Ways Technology Can Make You Happier. Depending on how you agree or disagree with the author, that will pretty much dictate which one you want to choose as your focus or the foundation for your argument. So if you find that you align more with How Facebook Makes Us Unhappy, perhaps you agree with Konikova's arguments and all of her evidence, that would be the focus, and then you would find some articles that help support your position. However, if you are more on the opposite side and you think that it's possible to pursue happiness in a digital world and that technology can make you happier, then you might go with a different author as your focus. You're free to pull in some of these as evidence or as support for your position, or even as examples of counter arguments. And we'll talk more about that as we get further on into the unit. You will also use the supplementary research handout. Now, let me pull that up for you in a separate window and be able to share it with you. So just a moment. So this is the supplemental research handout. It has additional resources, articles, that kind of stuff, even TED Talks in some cases, to help support or there are at least related to the main article that's been assigned. So if you are thinking about writing on How Facebook Makes Us Unhappy or something related to that, if you agree with what Konikova says here, then you would look at for additional sources, 2 to 3 additional sources in this section. Same goes for it pursuing happiness in a digital world. I have fewer resources there, but you should be able to find something related to it. Likewise, with Stop Googling, Let's Talk, we have a bunch of information here. And lastly, with 4 Ways Technology Can Make You Happier, we have additional resources that I think can be helpful. You aren't limited to using the supplemental technology handout. You can go out and find other resources, but I want to make sure that you evaluate those resources. And we'll talk about that more in week 11 so that you are certain that they're reliable, they're credible, and relevant sources, and not just somebody spouting their opinion or using biased information. So that's the supplemental research handout. So back to the assignment sheet, use that handout to locate 3 other sources to help support your argument. Of course, if you see connections between the other assigned articles, you can choose 1 or more of them to use as a source as well. The essay will be 4 to 6 pages long, 1,000 to 1,500 words in MLA format, 12-point font, double spacing, 1-inch margins. You know the drill by now. What we haven't done in the past with the 2 other essays is we haven't used quotes and paraphrases and borrowing information from other sources, which means we haven't needed a separate works cited page. For this research project, we will have to also have a separate works cited page. So the works cited page is an additional page that's tagged on to that initial 4 to 6 pages. It's not included in the total page count. Why? I don't know. Probably just to confuse students, but that's how MLA does things. Keep in mind that although the rough draft is not worth any points, it is marked complete or incomplete, just like we did with the last essay. So I encourage you to try your best to get as close to the 1,000 word minimum as you can with your draft. I know you might be struggling to how to get enough out of the sources that you're using, but as long as I have that in the rough draft, that gives me something to go on, something to provide you feedback with, and a way to guide you in the right direction to improve your writing. Down at the bottom, of course, we have all of the formatting information should you need reminders of how your page should be formatted, as well as the reminder of if you're using Google Docs, please make sure to download and save your document as a Word doc or a PDF so you can upload it to the Canvas system. Remember, I don't accept shared documents. I don't want you to email it to me. I don't want to have the hassle of dealing with your Google or your Microsoft account and having to contact you for permission. That just puts more work for me. And I'm teaching 3 classes, somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 students, which means if I have to do that multiple times, it just makes the grading and the feedback process that much lengthier. So that's a courtesy that you do for me. Save your document and upload it as a Word doc or a PDF. I can't stress that enough. What do we have going on this week? Well, this week we have a couple of things to watch, right? You're watching this overview slash lecture. Um, there is also the research unit overview. I'd like you to watch that so you have a little bit more context of what we're trying to do when we have students do a research project. Why is it such a big deal? And then the Monty Python Argument Clinic. If you didn't watch it when you looked at the information on the Canvas page, you can also take a look here. The assignments for this week: grammar quiz number 6, subject verb agreement. We've talked about that. This is discussion board with the reading responses. So the reading responses are based on both of the texts. I ask you a question about how Facebook makes us unhappy. Why does the author ultimately decide that Facebook makes people unhappy? And then for the second reading, pursuing happiness in a digital world, I'm asking you to reflect, did technology increase your level of happiness during the time of mandated social distancing during COVID-19? And how or how not? So it'd be nice to get a little bit of perspective on how you dealt with being in lockdown, right? And the whole social distancing thing that we had to deal with for the better part of a year, if not a couple of years. How did you deal with that? Did technology help you out? Did it help to increase your level of happiness during COVID-19? Um, so hopefully we'll get some good discussion going there. And your initial post is due October the 29th, sorry. And then try to respond to 2 peers by the following Wednesday, November 1st. Going back to the assignments, we have journal number 6. An opportunity to think about argument. Have you ever written a letter to a politician or a business leader? Have you ever written a response to a blog or tweeted to share your perspective on an issue? Or have you even written a letter to the editor of a newspaper or a magazine? So those are 3 different scenarios that perhaps you've taken part in kind of public discourse or a public argument. And if so, what prompted you to do so? Why did you choose to write in that situation? I realize that some of you may not have done anything like that, but I'd venture to guess that some of you have probably gotten into some of the comments on a blog or a social media post. Maybe not Twitter, but maybe even in Snapchat, you might have some group discussion going on and a little bit of an argument starts, where people are starting to voice their opinions and that kind of thing. And so I'm asking you just to think about that. What motivated you to write in that situation or respond in that situation? And to what extent do you think your writing made a difference to you or to anyone else who might have read what you wrote? right? A lot of the time when we are, especially when we're communicating digitally, we kind of have this anonymity from behind the computer screen or behind the phone screen. We feel it might be a lot easier to say things that we wouldn't otherwise say to people if we were face to face or in a classroom situation. So sometimes your writing might make a difference. It might affect somebody. It might be read by somebody and make them upset or, make them happy, depending on what it is that you've written. And so it's good to be mindful of that and to think about argument in that kind of a way. So that's your opportunity to write a little bit about that. And then we have the worksheet, the summarizing an argument worksheet. So let me open this one up. Again, I call it a worksheet. It's really just a bunch of questions to answer. But I only want you to choose to analyze one of the following articles that you've had to read this week. So choose either how Facebook makes us unhappy or pursuing happiness in a digital world. And I want you to think of the following questions and write a summary of the main argument of this opinion piece. So first of all, I want you to think of the title of the piece. You need to let me know what you're writing about, which one you've chosen to write about, what the author's name is. And then I want you to think about what the author's main claim is. What is their argument? And try to summarize that argument in your own words. Excuse me. Fourth, do you agree or disagree with the author? It's perfectly fine to disagree with any of the authors that you read in this class. You don't have to accept it. We all have our reasons for liking or not liking a piece of writing. Do you agree or disagree with what the person is writing? Does the author use evidence to back up this claim, or are they just stating an opinion? If there is evidence, is that evidence biased or unbiased? Also, how does the use of evidence or the lack thereof affect the author's credibility? Remember, in the rhetorical analysis unit, we talked about ethos and the appeal to credibility. So when we're reading arguments and an author either uses evidence that is unbiased, that can make them more credible, more believable, more reliable as a source than somebody who is just spouting their opinions, using biased information, or not having any kind of evidence, right? So these are all things to start think of as you come to read more critically. Think also of, does the author examine opposing viewpoints? Do they look at the other side of the argument? Maybe they do, or maybe it's hard to tell whether or not they really look at what the upside or the downside is, right? And lastly, I want you to think, can you think of a yeah, but exception to something that the author claims? And what is it? Keep in mind, the first one, How Facebook Makes Us Unhappy, was written way back in 2013. It is 10 years old. Perhaps there are some things that have changed since the author first published this article. So you could come up with a yeah, but exception to something that the author wrote 10 years ago. That has changed, right? COVID has changed us a lot. Pursuing Happiness in a Digital World, that was published in 2021. So it's a little bit more current, but of course it is looking mainly through the lens of the COVID-19 pandemic, because it was written much closer to the onset of the pandemic. So remember, just choose one to analyze. You don't have to analyze them both. There's no reason for you to do more work than is necessary. I mean, if you want to analyze both of them, that's fine, but you only have to analyze one. You will need to read both of them for the discussion board, but you only have to analyze one of them. So choose wisely. So all of the work is due the 29th. The peer responses for the discussion board is due the following Wednesday, November 1st. And gosh, I mean, it's hard to believe that we're at the end of October already. It's just, I don't know about you. Maybe it's because I'm older, but it just seems like it goes faster and faster and faster. Um, so if you have any questions, any concerns, please, you know how to reach out to me. I am here to help you. And if you're struggling with your writing, remember you can also reach out to Learning Commons or the Academic Writing Center. If you can't get what you need through the Claremont campus, you can always reach out to Learning Commons at the Clifton campus. They do have a wider network of people to work with, especially since you are digital students. That might be an option for you. Okay, good luck this week. I hope you enjoy the topic that I have chosen for this research. I think it's something that we can all relate to. We are all, especially in this class, because you are digital learners, it's something that affects all of us. So think about, does technology make us happy? And start thinking about how you feel about the topic, right? How you feel about the issue and what opinion do you have, and can you find evidence that supports that? All right. Take care, everybody, and have a fantastic week. Bye bye.